The Department of History and NSS National Service Scheme of Pune College decided to celebrate it to organize a guidance cum academic talk on Martyr's Day. And I have with me Dr. Parth Sharma, who is Senior Assistant Professor, School of Law, Faculty of Social Sciences at University Institute of Energy and Petroleum Studies, Dehradun, Uttarakhand. Dr. Parth Sharma is a fellow Aligarh. He did his graduation and PG from Aligarh Muslim University. His PhD thesis was on Indo-China strategic relations under the guidance of Professor Asmar Beg. He has been a gold medalist and has also presented papers and in various conferences and seminars, has been actively associated with some think tanks, and he is also he also had participated in various workshops and conferences organized by the UGC, British High Commission, and premier think tanks like Center for Policy Research, which we all know, New Delhi. His area of interest, as I told you, includes international politics, strategic relations, political theory, politics of development, issues concerning higher education, etc. So thank you, Parth Sharma, for accepting our invitation and to be the chief speaker for today's program. I request now my colleague and head Department of Political Science, Dr. Ahmad Shamshad, to please do the ibtida or the opening of this academic and guidance talk with the tilawat of the Holy Quran. Ahmad Shamshad, sir.
Okay, sir. Am I audible, sir? मेरी आवाज आ रही है?
जी जी आ रही है.
जी आ रही है, sir.
Good morning, Parth.
Good morning, sir.
Assalamu alaikum. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. أرأيت الذي يكذب بالدين فذلك الذي يدعو اليتيم ولا يحض على طعام المسكين فويل للمصلين الذين هم عن صلاتهم ساهون الذين هم يراءون ويمنعون الماعون صدق الله العظيم. Thank you, ZOHEB, sir. Over to you.
Thank you, sir. Before I invite my today's guest speaker, Dr. Parth Sharma, let me tell you, all of you, that Gandhi is an icon, not only to India, but to the entire world. And his essence, his significance, his importance can be gauged by the fact that most of the renowned world personalities like Martin Luther King, Albert Einstein, Nelson Mandela, Yasser Arafat, there's been a whole host of leaders who have praised him to the hilt and who have been influenced by him. And the times which we are passing through, the times in which we are living, it has become all the more important to understand Gandhi better, and now to dwell upon, to reflect upon what importance and the significance of his thought holds today, for today's India and for today's world scenario. Without taking much of your time now, I would like Dr. Parth Sharma to please start your talk and enlighten us about the topic of today's webinar. Over to you, Dr. Parth Sharma.
Thank you, ZOHEB bhai, for this very generous introduction. Before beginning, I would like to tell you that ZOHEB bhai has been my fellow colleague, and also Shamshad sir. He has been a super senior. I never saw him in the department, but he is also from AMU. And ZOHEB bhai was one person we always used to look up to. जब भी हम लोग हंसते थे, we always used to look up to ZOHEB bhai, and he has a lot of influence on many people, including me. So the today's topic is why Gandhi actually is relevant for the present era, right? Now, let me tell you that today ridiculing Gandhi has become, very normal, right? He has been critiqued both by India's left as well as India's rightist, right? So back then in the 1970s, if I can recollect, during the Naxalite movement, Gandhi's portraits and statues were, demolished by the then left government, which was there. And these days we have also seen that India's right have come very heavily on Gandhi. And recently there was an incident in Aligarh itself where his statue was again demolished. And 30th January is often even celebrated as Shaurya Divas, when Nathuram Godse basically killed Gandhi, and he is basically garlanded. But let me tell you that he has his share of admirers as well. And his share of admirers are not just confined to India, but it cuts across nations, it cuts across religions, right? So as already ZOHEB bhai told you that, Nelson Mandela, Khan Abdul Ghaffar Khan, Vinoda Bhave, Martin Luther, Dalai Lama, Anung Sukui, Desmond Tito, all these have been his admirers, which have belonged to different religions, which have belonged to different nations, right? Now, a very ironic thing I would like to share that he has his admirers and followers. For example, Aung San Suu Kyi, a Burmese politician, has been his admirer. She has herself, in her autobiography, has reiterated the kind of influence that Gandhi has on her life. Desmond Tito, again, has reiterated the influence that the Gandhi had on his life, right? You have Martin Luther King of the United States of America, a civil rights activist. He has also reiterated the kind of influence that Gandhi has. Now, ironically, all these followers of Gandhi has been awarded with Nobel Peace Prizes, but it is Gandhi who has never been awarded, Nobel Peace Prize, though unanimously 2nd October, is basically commemorated as International Day for Non-Violence. But that has been very ironical, and people say that if there was to be given this Nobel Peace Prize, Gandhi has to be the first choice. Now, anyways, this is a shame on Oslo, I personally believe. But let's talk about why Gandhi's relevance in the present day era. Why Gandhi continues to be relevant, and what are his political, social, economic ideas. To begin with, let me tell you that apart from being an astute politician, Gandhi was also a mass psychologist. To me, if you have to say that, Gandhi was definitely one person who understood the psychology of the masses better than any of his contemporaries, right? He deliberately chose those issues which actually concerned him, which concerned the life of the common man. For example, when he took the issue of common salt. Now, common salt is being used in our, daily life. It affects the lives of, a common man. It was only with the advent of Gandhi that Indian national movement became a mass movement, right? His non-violence as a strategy, which he used, is so relevant, right? Now, you just imagine, for a movement to be a mass movement, there has to be a participation from all the sections of the society. Prior to the advent of Gandhi, most of the sections of the society could not participate because Indian national movement at that time was revolutionary. It had violence in it. So of course, old age people, women, small children could not participate in great numbers. Now, non-violence as a strategy was successful. Why? Because now, if you have to boycott foreign clothes, anybody can do that, right? Be it a old age person, or be it a children, or be it women. So, I mean, all these sections participated in this movement, and the movement became a mass movement. Revolutionary consciousness became deep rooted in the mindset of all the Indians. So again, he enlarged the very basis of he enlarged the very basis of the national movement, right? So Gandhi knew the psychology of common masses. This is one very important aspect which we have to bear in mind when we are talking about Gandhi. Now, again, I'll tell you another concept of Gandhi which is so relevant even in today's world. His conception of trusteeship. Gandhi believed that zamindars should actually treat themselves as trustees, right? They must treat themselves that they are in a fortunate position, and they must basically consider these land holdings which they possess as a trust or a gift bestowed to them by God, and they should utilize this trust for the benefit of all the human beings, right? He was not, unlike Marx, he was not a votary of violence, right? Rather, he appealed to the conscience of of the zamindars, that they should voluntarily pledge part of their land as a trust, and they should utilize it for the welfare of the common masses. Now, what do you think? And by the way, this movement was successful to an extent. Vinoba Bhave basically started this movement, and where a couple of zamindars definitely pledged part of their land. Now, what do you think is corporate social responsibility? Don't you think this is basically appealing to the corporates that they should utilize the benefits that they are reaping from the society for the benefit of all the human beings? What is this entire conception of corporate social responsibility that we are coming up with? It is definitely, it has to do with the Gandhian conception of self. It is nothing but a reiteration of what Gandhi said 80 years back, right? You have seen so many philanthropic movements, going or coming up. Azim Premji Foundation, it is running a university. It is running so many schools which are, placed in different nooks and corners of India, where underprivileged children are given good quality education. What is this? This is basically the Gandhian conception of trusteeship. Warren Buffett, you must have known about this philanthropist. He has pledged part of his property for the benefit of the mankind. What is this? All these philanthropic movements, even Tatas, right? They are basically coming up a lot of philanthropic moves. All these are nothing but basically a Gandhian interpretation of his conception of trusteeship. We say that Gandhi is not relevant. It's false. Gandhi is relevant. His conceptions are relevant. People don't study Gandhi. People don't read Gandhi. That's why they have views which are basically problematic. Now, Gandhiji was basically a strong votary of non-violence, right? Now, when I say non-violence, non-violence is often very narrowly interpreted, right? Non-violence was just not abstention of, abstention from violence. It's not an option of the coward. Rather, this is an option of a brave person, right? Non-violence is even when you are nurturing evil ideas in your mind. This is non-violence, right? So non-violence was a very, very broad, strategy, right? Even consuming beyond one's mean, even consuming beyond one's requirement to Gandhi was non-violence, right? So, I mean, these days we are talking about so much about sustainable development. If you read the definition of sustainable development, you will find that you have to utilize the natural resources which are there, keeping in view your generations in future, right? So this entire conception of sustainable development, if I have to summarize in one quote, then what Gandhi used to say, that there is enough in this world to meet everyone's need, but there is not enough in this world to satisfy one's greed. This entire conception of sustainable development was paraphrased by Gandhi in this just one, what you can say, line, right? So Gandhi was, by the way, was not a big votary of heavy industrialization based on machines. He was basically not in favor of this heavy industrialization at the cost of nature. He was basically a believer of, sustainable development. He was a believer of self-sustainable villages, self-sufficient villages, where there have to be, where the emphasis must be on small-scale cottage industries, which were basically labor-intensive, which used to employ a lot of people. Now, in an era where we are witnessing, a jobless growth, people are thinking what Gandhi has reiterated 80 years back. Now they have started thinking that go back to the villages. What we have seen because of this rapid industrialization, one, there is definite impoverishment of our villages that has happened. Agriculture has stagnated, and we have seen a shift of population. There is a migration from, villages to the cities, right? The environment in the cities have, really polluted, and people have now thinking of returning back to their villages. They are thinking in terms of, self-sufficient autonomous villages, right? Talking about his political ideas, I'm reminded that Gandhi was basically what we can say, an anarchist. Now, you know that being students of political science and history, that anarchism as a philosophy talks about a stateless society. State to anarchist is basically a necessary evil, right? Why it is an evil? Because it imposes its will upon the people, and anything that is imposed is problematic, right? It hinders the personal development, it hinders the personality of the individual. But he was, unlike Marx, he was not a believer of a, what you can say, he was not a believer of a violent revolution where the bourgeois would be attacked by the proletariats, and since the proletariats in the majority, they will emerge victorious. He was not a believer of that. He basically said that there has to be, when he was basically a votary of a decentralized, very less powerful village, in which the villages of India, because he believed that the heart of India lives in the villages. He said that the villages have to be self-sufficient autonomous units. And this self-sufficient autonomous villages are actually, conceived as a very important thing nowadays. And it is with this mission that directive principles of state policies were also designed. We talk about Article 40, which talks about organization of village panchayats. Village panchayats basically, and if you read the article pertaining to the which is there in the directive principle of state policy, it clearly states that directive principles of state policy with respect to panchayats talk about that the village panchayat should be grown as units of self-governance. Now, this is what? This is nothing but a reiteration of what Gandhi said. It is because of the consistent insistence, led by Gandhi, that this directive was included, the directive principle of state policy was included. And you see that in the 1990s, these villages were basically given a constitutional status also. So our federal structure, which was basically two-tiered federal structure, became a three-tiered federal structure when village and municipalities were given a constitutional status. They were to be groomed as units of self-governance. You can always argue that this has not been successfully implemented, but that is a problem of implementation, right? That is a problem of implementation. But you cannot challenge this idea that a very strong, powerful India can stand with impoverished villages. This cannot happen. For India to be a superpower tomorrow, the villages have to be self-sufficient and autonomous units, right? That is a fundamental important aspect. Now, we have seen during COVID times how we have seen a very, very strong surveillance state emerging, right? Labor laws were diluted, So Gandhi was never a votary of a very, very strong state. He talked about a very strong villages and a very decentralized state, right? Because state to him was basically a coercive institution. So, but it is at the same time necessary also. So it is a necessary evil in that sense. So said that state should not be centralized in a very strong state. He was not in favor of that. Rather, he was talking about of a decentralized state and villages, and this is the need which have been felt over a period of time, and especially in the post-COVID situation, and we are still having the COVID phase. So we are basically witnessed this era, witnessed this particular situation in the last 2.5 years, that this has to be there. You need to have a decentralized state, which is such an important step. Now, Gandhi was basically, he was one of the first persons who bring women. He was a great votary of gender equality, and he brought women into the realm of politics. Prior to that, there was this strict public-private dichotomy which was operating, right? Women were confined to the four walls of the house, and they were not allowed to operate in things which were happening outside the houses. So they were confined to the private sphere, and public sphere was meant for men. But he challenged this, dominant notion which was prevailing at that time, and he success. A very interesting story I would like to tell you, that he was one of the first persons who integrated anti-liquor movement with non-cooperation movement. Since women bear the brunt of this particular issue, their drunk husbands used to come to the respective houses and used to beat them. So they were facing the burnt, and therefore they participated in this anti-liquor movement in huge numbers. They turned out in huge numbers, and because of that, non-cooperation movement saw a spectacular rise of participation. And therefore, it was one of the reasons why it was a mass movement. Of course, there were other issues. Khilafat issues was also integrated. There were other things which were there. But this anti-liquor movement and its successful integration with the mass movement was one of the reasons. And that is the reason why I always say that Gandhi knew the mass psychology. He knew that how can women be brought into the mainstream? How can women participate in the political process, and how can they contribute to our freedom struggle? So a very small issue, but it was impacting common people in a big manner, successfully integrated. So he was a very astute politician, right? Now, who says that that Gandhian ideas we have are not relevant these days in this era of consumerism, in this era of where there is widespread violence in not just national sphere but the international sphere? Gandhi is even more relevant, right? What is I'll just ask you that what is Manrega, Mahatma Gandhi National Rural Employment Guarantee Scheme? Don't you think this is nothing but the Gandhian program of rural reconstruction? This is nothing but promotion of small scale cottage industries. What are these things? This is Gandhian ideas into practice, right? These are nothing but Gandhi's ideas being, why was 73rd, 74th constitutional amendment passed? Don't you think these amendments were primarily aimed to bring Gandhian's ideas into reality? Yes, they are. These are all things which basically emphasize that Gandhi is relevant, more relevant than now let's talk about the Gandhian conception of non-violence. Now, Gandhian conception of non-violence could not be more relevant than in the present time. Now, when I teach my students of international politics, I say that realist paradigm over a period of time has been the most dominant theory of international politics, which says that States are the primary actors in international politics, and they are all characterized. There is power prevailing over them, and there is a principle of self-help which operates, and there is a constant threat to their sovereignty, and they are, it's like a Hobbesian state of war against all. This is the kind of picture that is portrayed by the realist thinkers. Now, let me tell you that in such an anarchical situation, different states compete with each other for power, markets, and influence. This is the crux of the realist theory. I'm pretty sure that some of you must have studied about this realist theory of international politics. But let me tell you, Gandhi said that that war cannot be a means to solve any dispute. In fact, to him, war was just an outward manifestation of some very deeper contradictions that are prevailing. Like, why do wars occur? Why do First and the Second World Wars occur? If you go deep into the reasons why these wars occurred, the reasons deep inside were inequality, racism, and greed. Greed was the real reason why there was imperialism, and imperialism led to the First World War and the Second World War. So Gandhi said that you have to strike deep into these contradictions. War is just an outward manifestation. You have to strike deep in order, and you have to really eradicate inequality, racism, and greed. These are fundamental things that drive men towards war. Gandhi said that an eye for an eye approach will make the whole world blind. This was Gandhi said. Now, this Gandhian dictum has proved to be true in the wake of America's forceful occupation of Iraq. We have seen that how America's forceful occupation in Iraq and Afghanistan has proved to be disastrous. You cannot forcibly supplant democracy and their own version of democracy. What we have seen in Afghanistan is a rise of another extremist form in the form of Taliban, right? This experiment has proved to be a disaster. Similarly, if you talk about India, force cannot be a basis to uproot Naxalism. Naxalism over a period of time has emerged as one of the most dominant internal threats that India is facing, right? And Naxalism, by the way, has spread to almost 28 different states in India. So you cannot, uproot Naxalism via force only. The real root cause for Naxalism is inequality. It is basically the lopsided development policies pursued by different governments in India that has been the real reason why Naxalism has developed. So again, these Gandhian approach, which says that you have to strike deeper into contradictions like inequality, racism, greed, these are more important. You understand? Then let me come to his ideas on education. Now, Gandhian ideas on education are so relevant. Our education system, if you look at, has been based on rote learning. You have to just, ratta maar liya and you have to just vomit it out, right? Now, this system was systematically designed by Britishers to produce conformationists, clerks, I would rather say. This system, which is based on rote learning, is devoid of any critical thinking. And, no democracy can survive without a critical citizenry, I would rather say. Right? Critical citizenry is fundamental for any democracy to successfully function. Now, in contrast to this education system, Gandhi basically outlined what you can say his own education system, which he called as, which has been brought in the newspaper called Harijan, and it is called as Nai Talim. He also formed Hindustani Tablimi Sangh. Now, his conception of Nai Talim were based on his experiments in South Africa, his experiments on Sabarmati Ashram that he carried out, his experiments that he basically carried out in Sevagram. Now, what is the main purpose of education? The main, according to Gandhi, the focal point of education must be the overall development of soul, body, and mind. When all these things act in harmony, then the human beings are at peace. He is really educated, I would rather say. And one thing, another very important thing that he emphasized in his educational scheme was the fact that education should be linked to, he actually emphasized a lot upon vocational education, right? So education should be, education should not be the sole purpose, rather employable education, an education which basically is empowering you, economically empowering you. Now, why do you think that India's national skill mission has been launched by our Prime Minister? Because there is a disconnect between market and education sector. What we have seen is a disconnect between the education sector and the market sector. So he basically talked about, vocational education, and vocational education is so very important. Now, this National Skill India Mission, if you talk about, aims to train over 50 million youths by 2020. Whether it is going to be, reach this scale, I don't know. But then this is again a reiteration of the Gandhian ideas, which were, which were basically portrayed in the Nai Talim. This would help youth in earning their livelihood. You understand, right? He said that education must be self-supporting. Now, I don't know if you say that whether his ideas are not relevant. I think that his ideas cannot be more relevant than in the present day world, when India is witnessing jobless growth. India is facing one of the worst employment crises ever in this pandemic situation. Because of the pandemic, so many people have lost their jobs. We have now started thinking about startups. People are saying, rather than asking jobs from the government, there must be startups. There must be entrepreneurs which should create jobs. Now, state is not in a capacity to generate jobs. So, I mean, this was long back, predicted by Gandhi, that education must be employable. You need to give students skills so that they feel confident while they emerge, after their graduation or post-graduation. They don't feel underconfident. So long back, Gandhi basically emphasized all these things, right? Now, again, his ideas on faith, on religious faith, to me is very, very relevant. Now, Gandhi basically said, he was a religious person, by the way, right? He was one of the most religious people. And he said that a person should basically pursue a profession. A person should basically pursue a religion in which he is born. He was against conversions. Now, why this is relevant? Now, we are saying that principally he was against conversion, and he said that religion should be, but he was basically, what he was saying, that the religion should be interpreted in the most progressive manner. Religion should be interpreted in a manner which is very, very progressive, right? In the widest progressive manner, it should be interpreted. He talked about interfaith dialogue, right? His own colleague C.F. Andrews, who was a Christian, in his own ashram used to recite prayers from different faiths. So the verses from different faiths were basically recited, and he was basically a votary of interfaith dialogue. And now these days we have realized the futility of the Huntington's thesis, clash of civilization, right? We have understood that this clash of civilization is leading word to nowhere. Rather, what we want is a conglomeration of civilization, which could only be based on interfaith dialogue. You tell me, can there be a better way except for interfaith dialogue? This is the only way where we can actually bring different faiths on a common platform, because teachings are common to all. most of them. Now, rather than, because Gandhi believed that no particular faith can basically can claim for 100% truth. They cannot claim a monopoly over truth, rather, right? No religion can claim monopoly over truth. So it has to be based on an interfaith dialogue. Now, this is such a relevant thing, which he said. And why are different civilizations clashing? It is basically because of their ego and a tall claim that they claim a monopoly over truth. To him, no religion can claim monopoly over truth. We are living in, in political science, we talk about postmodernism. This is nothing but postmodernism. Postmodernism says that we are living in a post-truth society. There can't be a one singular narrative of truth. There can't be a singular definition of truth. Truth is relative. Truth cannot be absolute, right? It depends upon a lot of factors. From different vantage points, the definition of truths will also change. So this is nothing but a reiteration of postmodernism, which he basically said 70, 80 years back, right? So very relevant. Okay. Now, if you talk about the ideas of sustainable development, the idea of sustainable development is so important. So he said that there is enough in this world to satisfy one's one's need, but not greed. Now, in the wake of financial crisis 2008, and in the wake of the sovereign debt crisis, in the wake of in the wake of nations going for austerity measures, we can clearly see that why Gandhian ideas are so relevant. It is so very relevant. It can't be more relevant then. And he was also opposed to excessive individualism, which was basically being portrayed by rapid industrialization, right? In today's world, we see how overexploitation of natural resources and excessive consumerism have harmed the environment. And now we have seen the emergence of green politics. So many political parties, this is a phenomena which is very much there. There is a spectacular rise of green politics, green political parties which focus upon environment. So environment has become a very important issue. People have started saying that environment is not just simply an issue, it has become a security issue. Now see, there are so many island nations. For them, their biggest security threat is not terrorism. Their biggest security threat is not wars. They are more concerned about climate change. For example, take the example of Maldives, take the example of Sri Lanka. Even a small increase in the mean sea level will result in the inundation of all these islands. And if these islands will be inundated, then the entire population will be submerged. So to them, environment is a serious issue. That was emphasized way back by Gandhi, that we have to take care of the nature. His ideas on education, the emphasis on vocational education, his ideas on violence, non-violence. We have seen that how violence as a strategy backfires. If there is a revolution, a violent revolution, it is bound to have some serious repercussion. We need to have gradual progressive change over a period of time. So, Gandhi is so very relevant, and he has his share of admirers, not just confined to India. You will find these share of admirers which are spread to, different altogether different words, different people from different religion, cutting across nations, cutting across caste, cutting across space. They have followed Gandhi and they have realized the importance of Gandhi, right? Now, one more thing is his ideas on Swaraj. His ideas on Swaraj are also very relevant, right? Now, when we talk about, he was a great votary of Gram Swaraj. India, via 73rd Amendment, has become the only country in this world, I would say, which have given constitutional status to panchayats. We have seen how grassroots democracy is treated as a characteristic of good governance these days. 1990s, we have seen, good governance emerging universally as an important theme. Now, one of the most important aspects of good governance is deep rooting of democracy. When a common person is able to, participate, and he believes fundamentally that he can affect the politics, then we can say that truly we have become emerged as a successful democracy. So he was a great votary of Gram Swaraj, right? Now, when Gandhi was a great psychologist, I said, he said that even nurturing evil ideas is problematic. And now these days we have seen psychologists reiterating this fact that you have to reiterate good, positive ideas about individuals, about people, about nature. You have to daily reiterate those ideas. If you reiterate those ideas, it definitely have a calming effect over your mind. This has been proved by researchers. So, I mean, he was a successful politician. He was definitely a successful, he was a successful psychologist. He cared about environment. He was a great votary of gender equality. His ideas on education, they are so important. Now, I believe that Gandhi remains more relevant than ever in the present day world. In this power-hungry, consumerist world wherein people are running behind money and muscle power, his ideas on leading simple life, conserving natural resources, promoting small-scale industries, his views on economic and social equality, his ideas on truth, non-violence, all these, his emphasis on the vocational education, his ideas on gender equality, these are priceless gifts, not only to our generation, but also, to our future generations as well. And I'm so happy and glad that Pune College of Art, Science and Commerce have given me this opportunity to speak on this very relevant theme on this particular occasion. With this, I would like to thank you all for giving me this opportunity to speak. There are so many things we can talk about, but I think in this span of time, I just could tell you about all these things. Thank you so much. If you have any questions, or if you want to, basically, then probably we can have that. If that is within the purview of the current program.
हेलो
या ज़ोहेब भाई, you are audible.
हाँ सर, देख लिया मैंने. मैं अभी बस आपको इनवाइट करता 2 मिनट में सर. Yes, thank you, Parth, for such an enlightening and riveting discussion. And I think the students, if they are interested, they can put up questions. If you have any question to ask the expert, you are most welcome to ask to clear your doubts. Anyone of you? I think none of them has any question to ask. But yes, Gandhi, being the father of the nation and an icon, is very relevant, very important. He holds a message. He held a message at that time when he was alive. He holds a message when he is no more with us. And I would only like to say, yesterday I went through an article where the chairman of the Norwegian Nobel Committee, the Norway awards the Peace Prize every year, Nobel Peace Prize. So the chairman of the Norwegian Nobel Committee in 2006, his name was Geir Lundstedt. He did said that it has been a folly and a grave mistake on our part that we have not given Gandhi the Nobel, which he had deserved. And he further says that it is our folly. Gandhi will live even if Nobel is not given to him. His place is assured in history. It is our mistake that we have not given Nobel to him. So this statement only signifies the importance of Gandhi. And he was nominated 4 or 5 times, if I am not mistaken, for Nobel Peace Prize, but he never got one. So anyway, Parth, thank you for accepting our invitation and delivering such a stupendous, such a riveting, such enlightening, insightful discussion on Gandhi. I hope this video is there on the YouTube. It has gone live, and the students can benefit after going through it. And Gandhian thought and Gandhian philosophy is a paper in many disciplines. It is being taught. And as I said, the relevance of Gandhi is more important, is more than ever needed in today's India. It's a great matter of pride for us, and that the Department of History in association with NSS conducted this guidance talk on the relevance of Gandhi. And I'm delighted that our principal, sir, Professor Aafreen Shaikh, sir, has joined us. He has been very busy for the last couple of days. Thank you, sir, for joining us. And I would now invite our principal, sir, to please extend his presidential address for today's program.
Yes, thank you very much, sir. It is indeed a pleasure for me to listen to Dr. Parth Sharma. Dr. Parth Sharma has delivered, this is not a lecture what he has delivered, but I think these are the things which our youth require today. What I have listened to him, Gandhi's नई तालीम, if we thought about, आज जो भी हमारे इंडिया में चल रहा है, हम लोग गुरुकुल सिस्टम बोलेंगे, वोकेशनल एजुकेशन बोलेंगे, we are talking about skill development, all those things were there, and Gandhiji has initiated all these things. He was the person who has given lot of things to India. और आज हमारा जितना भी युवक है, जितना भी युवा है, ये युवा इन्होंने गांधी जी को समझना आज भी बहुत जरूरी है. It is very important that they should know what गांधी जी was. ये आज जो भी चलता है, बहुत सारी चीजें बहुत मार्केट में चल रहा है, गांधी जी ये थे वो थे, पर लेकिन गांधी जी क्या थे, आज डॉक्टर पार्थ शर्मा ने बहुत अच्छा उनके बारे में हमको बताया. और लॉट ऑफ थिंग्स आवर स्टूडेंट्स माइट हैव गॉन थ्रू इट. तो मुझे लगता है कि आई एम वेरी मच थैंकफुल टू डॉक्टर पार्थ शर्मा फॉर डिलीवरिंग दिस अ वंडरफुल लेक्चर. और इसके आगे भी सर मुझे लगता है कि ऐसे ही हम लोग थोड़ा थोड़ा गांधी एंड हिज मिशन ऐसा लेके अगर हम लोग कुछ कर सकते रहेंगे तो वी कैन हैव दोस काइंड ऑफ लेक्चर्स सर. सो थैंक यू वेरी मच. थैंक्स टू ऑल द स्टूडेंट, थैंक टू डिपार्टमेंट ऑफ हिस्ट्री, थैंक्स टू डिपार्टमेंट ऑफ एनएसएस, एंड वंस अगेन थैंक्स टू डॉक्टर पार्थ शर्मा. थैंक यू वेरी मच.
Thank you so much, sir, for giving me this opportunity. It was a pleasure talking to you.
बड़ा अच्छा लगा. यस, एंड इट इज इंडीड अ प्लेजर फॉर अस आल्सो कि हमारा भी जो यूथ है, भले जितने भी रहेंगे, उनको ये समझना चाहिए कि सच में गांधी ने ये सब किया है. नहीं तो आज के लोगों ने वो एक सब उल्टा माहौल बना दिया है और एक गलत इंफॉर्मेशन लोगों तक पहुंचाते हैं. ये जितना हमारा यूट्यूब चैनल है, जितना फेसबुक है, इंस्टाग्राम में, हमारा यूथ ये सब समझ के उनको लगता है कि गांधी ने कुछ ही नहीं किया. ये देश गांधी का है. हम लोग क्यों कहते हैं, सच में देश गांधी का है. और गांधी जी ने, मैं तो नई तालीम का बहुत बड़ा, इन्हें आज भी जितना भी यूथ है जो पढ़ाई नहीं करता, कुछ नहीं करता, मैं कहता हूं कि नई तालीम में जो प्रैक्टिकल ओरिएंटेड अप्रोच जो था, उस अप्रोच को लेकर अगर आज यूथ चलता है. हुनर की बात करते हैं, हुनर, व्हाट इज हुनर? हुनर इज प्रैक्टिकल अप्रोच. एक स्किल आना चाहिए. अगर स्किल बच्चों में आ गया तो ऑटोमेटिकली कोई डिग्री की जरूरत उसको नहीं पड़ेगी. डिग्री लेने वाला बच्चा कुछ नहीं कर पा रहा. जिसके पास हुनर है, जो महात्मा गांधी की नई तालीम और प्रैक्टिकल अप्रोच पे चला, आज वो बच्चा बहुत पैसे बना सकता है, बहुत पैसे कमा सकता है. थैंक यू डॉक्टर पार्थ.
Thank you, sir.
वेलकम वेलकम. आगे मिलेंगे हम लोग, आगे और भी कुछ करेंगे.
Sure, sir. Sure.
ओके, थैंक यू वेरी मच.
Thank you so much for giving me this opportunity, sir.
वेलकम.
ZOHEB bhai, all lovely to meet and see my seniors. So it was indeed a pleasure. So many of my seniors are here in the Pune College of Arts, Science and Commerce. I can see
Good.
even Dr. Shahid Jamal is here. He's also
Yeah.
here. I can see a lot of faces. So it's indeed a pleasure,
Thank you very
interacting
much.
with you all. Thank you so much, sir.
वेलकम.
Thank you, Parth, and thank you, sir, Principal sir, for your words of wisdom and your concern, and the relevance which you talked of Gandhi still holds for this country. I would just like to end by saying that the greatest tribute to Gandhi was paid by none other than Albert Einstein, the famous physicist, who said that generations to come will scarcely believe that such a man in flesh and blood ever walked on this planet. आने वाली सदियां शायद ही याद रखेंगी कि कभी हाड़ मास का कोई ऐसा इंसान भी इस जमीन पे आया था. So that itself says it all, that what is the greatness of Gandhi. Anyway, I would now like to request Dr. Aafreen Abrar Ahm, who is NSS Program Officer and also Assistant Professor, Department of Botany, to please extend a word of thanks. Over to you, Dr. Aafreen.
Thank you, sir. Respected Principal, Vice Principals, guest speaker Dr. Parth Sharma, colleagues and dear students, to commemorate Martyr's Day with a fair number of participants on a Sunday is indeed a great achievement that portrays our respect and deep sense of gratitude to the father of the nation, Mohandas Karamchand Gandhi. I thank Dr. Parth Sharma for gracing this occasion and giving us an insight into the ideals and principles of the Mahatma that are relevant even today and will continue to do so forever. On behalf of AKI's Pune College of Arts and Commerce Unit and the Department of History, I extend my deep sense of gratitude to him. I pray and hope that he has influenced the young participants here to follow the path of the Mahatma. I take this opportunity to thank Principal Dr. Mukhtar Shaikh for his guidance, support, and permission for this program. A deep sense of gratitude to the NSS program officers, Dr. Aafreen and Dr. Akbar Sayyed, Head Department of History and also an NSS member, Dr. ZOHEB HASAN, for commemorating this day and sensitizing students. I thank Head Department of Political Science and NSS member, Dr. Ahmed Shamshad, for his contribution. A big thanks to all colleagues and students for being a part of this wonderful program. The technical team headed by Mr. Imran Mirza needs special mention and a big thanks to him. Thank you, all of you.
Thank you, everyone, for a patient hearing.
No, it was wonderful, Parth. Very enlightening. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, Zoheb bhai. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Okay, so with this, the program concludes. Thank you each and all, everyone of you.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Thank you. Yes. Thanks to all the students who have joined us. Thank you to you all too. Yes, the program concludes. Yes, thank you.
Shall we drop, sir?
Yes, yes, yes. Sure.
Okay. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, sir.